Welcome back to the $1 Billion Podcast. We talk about $1 billion ideas, $1 billion companies, and $1 billion topics. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Guarino. Welcome back. I'm so happy to have you. And so delighted to bring with me on my co-host for today, taking the place of our esteemed host, George Hariri. Here's Matt Ford. Welcome.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm good.
I need a quick backstory on the music. Have we ever told the story about the music? Or?
The story is we bought a Rodecaster, thanks to the recommendation of John here, and that was the preloaded thing when I hit this button, is the whole story.
I love it, dude. You nailed the intro. I'm proud of you.
Because we're recording this a special way, that was the second time I gave that intro. So, and when I did it the first time, he also said I nailed it. So that's 2 times I've nailed an intro. Host of the year right here.
True professional.
Well, welcome.
You like my jersey?
I love your jersey. Matt Ford, for those who don't know, is a diehard Wisconsin, Packer fan. Yet he grew up in South Dakota. Someone tell me how that works. Maybe
Minnesota, actually.
Minnesota.
That's my first one. Yeah.
So you didn't want to be a part of the losing franchise of the Vikings, so you picked the winning one. Is that how it went?
Couldn't do purple. That's what it boiled down to. Purple
looks good, man. Though I do like their colors. That's a shame. All right, we got a fun one today. I got an ad. We got some sports talk. I know a lot of people come here because they're jazzed up about hearing what's latest in sports. So we got the two biggest sports guys at Chair Practice with us. George is kind of a poser. We got a beefy COVID corner, big one. We're going to do some business deep dives that Matt's going to lead us through. We're talking a bit about longevity, living longer. Everyone wants to do that, and get to some questions. So that's our agenda for today. Matt, any thoughts, additions?
Let's get after it. My name has been slandered enough on this podcast over the last month or so I figured it's a good time for me to hop on.
I much prefer slandering people behind their back to their face. Is a little tougher. So I'm actually in a tough spot right now.
The worst is when you make one comment and then have zero chance to come on.
That's the whole point. They have no ability to defend themselves. So it's easy. It's an easy target. It's beautiful.
I love it.
All right. So let's get to our ad. Okay. So I just heard about this company and it's kind of rocking my world. So if you're like me, have you ever wanted to fly private but didn't want to pay private plane prices? I think we're all nodding there. Well, yeah. I just heard about an airline that lets you do that. Imagine a world of no TSA lines, no more showing up to an airport 2 hours early, and most importantly, and you all know this, no face diapers. This company is called JSX. What JSX does, they've gotten recycled United Express airplanes. They fit about 30 people, and they fly under 500 miles, so quicker flights. But it's a full private experience. Full free food, free drinks, show up to a different terminal than the common folk does. They have to wait in the TSA lines, hop right in 45 minutes to an hour, you're at your flight in a perfectly private plane experience. The best part, average prices for these are the same as a normal flight. I looked at flights from Phoenix to Vegas. I'm going to surprise Alan with a little trip. And $200.
What?
Yeah, round trip.
How'd you find it?
I got a Facebook ad. Facebook, brilliant company. We've had an ad before.
Our other sponsor
has targeted me very correctly because I am their target market when it comes to this. And I looked into it. I couldn't believe what I saw.
Wow.
Yeah.
$200. Okay, so there's got to be some sort, because there's other private companies that tried to get into this affordable private flight thing. But what's the difference with this and those?
I mean, the difference, and I don't know how they're able to do this, is they don't have membership plans. Our horrible landlord, SetJet, charges you $100 membership fee a month, and then it's $500 one way per flight. Now, your experience is probably going to be a little nicer. It's going to be a nicer plane, probably a little nicer food. The whole thing's going to be a little bit nicer, but you're still paying, call it $1,100 round trip for the same flight, like a Phoenix to Vegas.
Yeah.
The one downside is from Phoenix, they only go to Burbank, LA area, Vegas, and San Francisco. Obviously, no one wants to go there. So scratch that off. So it only goes 2 places.
You can do a little wine country action. You can do a little wine country.
Yeah, I guess as long as you're never setting foot in San Francisco proper, you're good. But
dude, it's bad right now. We can get into that later. But
did you see what happened? So 3 policemen showed up to a restaurant in Union Square in San Francisco, and they were turned away from service. You know why? Because the staff at the restaurant said they were making customers feel unsafe because they were carrying weapons. That is the police they're talking about.
brutal.
Can you believe that?
I follow some people, just people I know in San Francisco, and it's like it seems like they're not even trying anymore to like.
No.
I don't know, the crime rates, and I mean, obviously COVID stuff and whatever. It's gotten out of control. It really has. It's sad.
Well, and I'm going to touch on this a little in COVID Corner, but it's what happens. The person who's doing this, his name's Chesa Boudin. He might be attorney general, or he's he's able to set policies in California, and they have very much, they're not prosecuting misdemeanors. So it's allowing a culture of letting, people who vandalize stores not worry about repercussions. I mean, the other day you saw Louis Vuitton, 30 people stormed into Louis Vuitton and just ransacked the place, and they ended up catching a couple of people. They'll probably not even charge them and release them. But yeah, it's madness.
Unreal. I'm looking at JSX now, and I thought for a second it was fake.
Yeah,
but it looks pretty real.
Yeah, I mean, if you see a picture of their planes, like like I said, they're recycled United Express planes, so they're not super nice. But
right.
The food's supposed to be really good. The alcohol is premium, and they it's like a 45-minute flight. Most of these because they're really quick. So and they're still serving food and alcohol in that short of time.
Are you going to private terminals at these airports, or that's sweet?
Yeah. So they valet your car, so you don't literally you can show up 20 minutes before, which is just such a game changer.
I love how you had zero problem of calling out our landlord.
No,
I didn't think you were going to say my name, but you just went straight for it.
Oh, no, they're evil. We've talked about them before. Yeah, I mean, Ellen's best friend just went on one of their flights to San Diego, and it really personally hurt me. I felt offended and attacked by them doing that. I'll have to make that known to them.
Oh man!
All right,
good ad though. I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. Look into it. Let's go into some sports talk because did you watch the Patriots game last night?
You know me. Mm-hmm. I'm in bed by about 7:15 Central Time, so. As soon as the Sunday night football or Monday night football music comes on, I'm usually turning off the TV and shutting my head. No idea.
I kind of forgot that South Dakota is in Central Time. I kind of just assumed it was in Mountain Time. Why is that?
It's actually right down to the state.
Oh,
so Missouri River, right? Go kind of cut it right in half, and that's the boundary.
Your internet sucks. Can you fix whatever's going on there? Your internet is awful and it's ruining the listening experience.
I'm in South Dakota. We don't get a ton of it out here. So
oh my lord!
I apologize.
Unreal. Listeners, I'm sorry for his chopping. This is pathetic. This is not worthy of the $1 billion podcast, but we'll continue. Anyways, the reason why the game is interesting. So the Patriots have won 7 in a row. I am currently researching how to get Super Bowl tickets. And side point, when the Patriots play the Packers in the Super Bowl, I'm going to have to wear one of those, down the middle jerseys. Aaron Rodgers on one side, Mac Jones on the other side, because I have to support my guy.
You're the mom? You're the mom and you have 2 kids playing in the same game? That's going to be you?
No, but I messaged you.
Are you thinking Super Bowl?
Yeah.
You're thinking Super Bowl?
I'm thinking Super Bowl. In a prior life, my mantra was Pats by $1 billion, and that is now returned. Pats by $1 billion to the Super Bowl bus. And I asked you, I said, when our teams go to the Super Bowl, because I really believe both of those teams will you go?
100%.
So you're on the record here.
Where's it at?
It's in LA, the new stadium.
I mean, we'll take our sponsor to Burbank. Boom.
Yes. So I've even cut short my honeymoon with plans that I will be at the Super Bowl. That's how far deep I'm in.
Talk to me about the game last night. Let's talk about that.
Okay,
that was a 1925. I just saw the stat lines and wait. Was Mac Jones, did he throw 3 times the entire game?
Yeah, so exactly. So I looked it up. Average number of passes versus runs in the NFL last year was 59%. Last night, the Patriots threw the ball 3 times for a total of 6%. Now, a couple of reasons why they did that. So it was in Buffalo. It was kind of snowy-ish and really windy. And Mac Jones isn't really known for a rocket arm. And he's also a rookie quarterback, so Bill will go out of his way to put him in positions where he can't fail. But I think what's more interesting is that people don't fully understand how much of Bill Belichick is a historian of the game. And he saw an opportunity that he could literally win the game by never throwing the ball. And what that would mean in the history books, this is unheard of in 2021 NFL. Am I right?
That's like a Belichick wet dream game.
Exactly. So he very clearly could have done a couple more play actions, maybe some screen passes, gotten that pass number up to 8 or 10. But he went out of his way to not do that, so he could say, "I literally didn't throw the ball and I still beat you."
So are they the team to beat in the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, there's some buzz with the Chiefs. Their defense has looked a lot better, but Mahomes has been awful lately. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 2 weeks.
No.
And like
Agreed.
people who know how to look at film and stuff, like they say his mechanics are all off. Like some mojo's gone with him that I don't quite understand.
Yeah, the Jordan Love Packers like very easily should have beat the Chiefs that game. Like it was wild, and that was like as bad of a game as I've ever seen.
I don't love that their defense is good again. Like Chris Jones is an absolute monster in the middle, and their pass defense has been good too. Let's put it this way: they're the team I least want to play in the playoffs in the AFC, bar none.
Okay,
but what's
so
also
we're thinking.
Go ahead. Now you got.
So we're thinking Packers. Who else has a chance to go Super Bowl NFC? Cardinals.
I think Super Bowl teams are 5 teams. I think it's the Chiefs, the Patriots, and it's the Packers, Cardinals, and who's the other one I'm forgetting?
Rams.
Oh, the Bucks.
Bucks. Yeah, obviously.
I think it's pretty surely it's going to be Bucks, Packers championship game, and Patriots, Chiefs. I think everything's leading towards that.
So are we betting the Patriots? No, Patriots on a bye next week, aren't they?
Yeah, they're on a bye, and then actually directly after ABPO, Pat's game 6:20 against Colts.
It's gonna be a big one. What do you think about watching games in Mountain Time?
I love
Eastern
it.
Time?
Yeah, I think I go back and forth. I think it's my favorite time zone for sports. There are aspects of Pacific I really liked because obviously Phoenix does both. So I loved the NFL games at 10 a.m. on Sunday, but I didn't love the primetime games for baseball playoffs and NFL at 5:20. That's like a little early. So actually that like 6:20 is probably perfect. Mountain Time is probably the perfect sports time zone.
I think it is too. Yeah, there's like not one ever thing that could be too late. I mean, some of the West Coast like college football games maybe, but other than that, like
yeah. I mean, I was sleeping like a baby by 9:40 last night, and after watching the entire game. When I was in New York, it was friggin' like 11:30, and they would inevitably lose, and then I had to go right to bed and get up for work in the morning. That was a nightmare.
You'd be like stewing in bed for like an hour, like couldn't sleep.
I distinctly remember. So it was the Cam Newton Seattle game last year where they had a big comeback. They get to the 1-yard line. It's 4th and 1 with like 5 seconds on the clock. They get stuffed. 11:30, immediately have to go right to bed. And then this year, it's the Brady rematch game in Foxborough. They kick a 54-yard field goal to win it. Hits the friggin' crossbar. I threw the remote against the wall and then just like stared up at the wall in bed for a while.
Do you remember the game, the replacement risk game with the Packers?
Yeah.
Seahawks, where those like the incomplete and touchdown thing at the same time.
Who ended up winning that game?
The Seahawks. I mean, that call went in favor of the Seahawks. Ridiculous decision, by the way.
Yeah.
But I remember just standing in front of the TV for like an hour, just like waiting for someone to come back on and be like, "Look, we made a mistake." Like the NFL said, like we got to go back and like I was literally I didn't say a word. It was brutal. God.
Being a fan sucks.
And I went on Twitter against the replacement refs for like an hour or two, and it was a good time.
Dude,
I was angry at that point.
Being a fan is the absolute worst because, like, people will look at me as a New England and a Boston fan in general and think like, oh, he's spoiled. Like, how many titles have you won in your lifetime? Well, a lot.
I think that.
Yeah, exactly. But what they don't understand is that the stings of the losses hurt way more than the thrills of the win. I am literally rooting for my team not to lose so I don't have to feel the losing pain, that I actually feel like good when they win.
Totally agree.
So I'm still in pain. Like 2006, an AFC Championship game, have a 20-point lead at halftime against the Colts with a way better team than the Colts had this year. Like Peyton Manning beat you. Unacceptable. My birthday party, 2016. AFC Championship game, playing a Peyton Manning with no arm. I have all my friends there. We have a keg. My birthday. Everything's happened. Fun. They score a touchdown to get within 2. They miss the 2-point conversion. Don't go to the Super Bowl. Broncos win the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning wins his last season. Like, those stay with me so much longer than the wins. Clearly.
Dude, what was it? 3 weeks ago, Packers Vikings. I'm from like all my friends are Vikings fans. That game means so much to me. It's like, and I was like waiting all weekend to watch it, right?
Yeah.
And it comes on and they start losing like the first 5 minutes in, and I'm like, Sarah, just like watch anything else. Literally. Like HGTV, don't care. I'm done with this game already. And then I just laid there following it on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Too. And they almost came back, and God, it's nothing worse.
Yeah,
I got another sports topic.
Go for it.
Can we transition from NFL?
Yeah.
What about our boy Tiger?
Yeah, I did see him swinging a bit. So do you believe the talk about him coming back for the PNC?
I do. I think there's zero chance it could be even like remotely competitive.
Yeah, agreed. I
It
mean,
looks like his swing speed's about 75 right now.
yeah, he's not swinging too hard. He looks pretty gingerly. Looks kind of stiff. But what do you think about first tournament Masters? Is it too early to start that talk?
I was looking it up. Hold on, let me find the odds for Tiger. That seems to me like such a ridiculous bet. I mean, they're like, it was like 30-1 or something, like pretty low for him to win this coming Masters in like 3 months.
That's what. So they're expecting him to play in that.
He's going to play. I don't think there's any chance he plays. I mean, you and I are big Tiger fans, and I like when he won the Masters a couple years ago, had that comeback. I was laying in bed watching it with Sarah, and I was like, she like looked over at me, and I had like a tear going down my face, and she's like, "Are you joking? You're like crying because the guy won a golf tournament?" I was like, "You don't understand." He was like hugging his kid at the back of the green and stuff. And it was like his dad wasn't there and all that stuff. Dude, I mean, I never watch like coverage after a game. I hate post game coverage and like post round coverage. I watched everything that day.
Oh yeah.
Every Tiger interview, like everything. God, that was good.
Yeah, I don't think I've rooted for a golfer harder to win a tournament. And I've been rooting for Tiger since I was a little kid. I loved him, especially in the British Open ones. Those are like my best sporting events I ever watched were him hitting stingers in the British Open and winning. But yeah, I mean, that was just so unexpected, so like perfectly capped off his career towards the end of it. But I don't know, like his whole goal is going to be play with Charlie. So like, I don't doubt that he's going to come back and do it.
Oh, he will. Yeah. How long till he's Champions Tour ready? I feel like he's going to just dominate Champions Tour for a bit there.
What is the age of the Champions Tour?
He's 46, right? And it's 50 for Champions Tour.
50. Okay, so that's why Mickelson just started playing.
Yeah.
Just dominating fools on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we to COVID corner?
Yeah, I think we're in COVID corner. We're past time, 17 minutes. I know everyone sits on the edge of the seat waiting for it, so I'm here for oh my God.
All right, I'm ready for COVID corner.
If you're not watching on YouTube, and you should, $1 Billion Podcast on YouTube, please. Matt Ford is wearing a level 2 mask pulled up over his nose with tons of air gaps for all kinds of COVID particles to get in there, which there surely are right now. Oh, that's a bad image.
Happy I got that in. You know what? You know what's funny? If you're watching on YouTube, so I was just watching the highlights of the Bron James game at Staples Center and like California Basketball Association. This is how they have to wear masks.
Yep.
But this is how they wear their masks when they're playing.
So if you can't see it, it's under his chin and
over the chin.
Yeah. So
not over the mouth, not over the nose.
No, it's just it's purely for show, purely for virtue signaling, purely to follow some restrictions that are based on nothing. And they all know it's a joke.
I mean, that literally does nothing.
Yeah.
Like wild.
Literally.
Wild. All right. Take it away.
All right. So we have I teased a couple weeks on the show that I'm going to talk about A Plague Upon Our House, the book. So that'll be our meaty topic. I want to start a little lighter, a little quick updates. So if you didn't see, another federal court just blocked the Biden vaccine mandate. This time was for federal contractors. That means there are 0 enforceable federal vaccine mandates currently in existence in the United States. They have all been struck down by the federal courts. So where it goes from there is it goes to your state law. If you're in a place that values freedom, like Florida, those are illegal. South Dakota also. South Dakota is almost as good as Florida, probably the number 2 state in the country. So congrats to your it's a female governor. I forget her name.
Noam.
Yeah, she's a wonderful woman. So it is in those states, in the free states, it is illegal for businesses to require their employees to be vaccinated, which is a huge win. This is something you don't see in Europe. This is one reason why I think I'm always going to be proud to be American. Just great to see. I just wanted to update everyone on that. Now you told me you had COVID questions for me. You want to shoot those at me before I get my deep topic?
I do. Well, let me just quickly. I need to address my COVID comments from last time I was on the show. So I don't exactly remember what I said. I know for sure that I said that I felt like if everyone got vaccinated, then we'd be out of this, right? And you have talked about that. But I do think so. Here's my view on it, and it's kind of like a little bit. My whole reason behind saying that at the time was that I felt like this really got out of hand as far as like restriction and control and stuff. I mean, like a pandemic is just something that's contagious, right? And it just spreads. But pandemics can happen and there doesn't have to be shutdowns for pandemics, right? The reason I feel like this got so bad so fast is because the severity of like disease and severity of symptoms people had, and like, you know, sick people that were already sick were dying, and old people were dying. And I just felt like, you know, still today, and I don't know what the numbers are, you could probably tell me what the numbers are, but like I would assume that still like a huge majority, over 95% of people that are dying are unvaccinated.
This is a statistic I've had trouble finding exactly. I would agree with you that it's definitely the majority. Is it high as 95%? That seems a little high to me. I would think more in the 80s, but it's definitely high. It's definitely the majority for sure.
So my whole reason of saying that, the quote unquote Matt Ford debacle of me saying that we should all get vaccinated was because, and I shouldn't say we, like you and I are in our low 30s and like fairly healthy and like whatever, it doesn't really matter for us. But like, at what stage would you say it does matter? Like, is it like 50? Is it like if you had parents that were 65 or older, like is there a age or something that you'd be like, look, it makes a lot of sense for this group of people to get vaccinated, and like people below this range like doesn't really make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that when we go into this book, Dr. Atlas talked about is when you're doing anything in public health and you're making giant changes, there needs to be a goal. And what he has said from the beginning in March 2020, and when he was on this COVID task force, is the public health goal should be protect the vulnerable. So right now we have a pandemic of the vulnerable, mostly unvaccinated. Those are the people who are dying. They're already vulnerable. They're unvaccinated, and they are the ones passing away. And we're still having over 1,000 people a day in this country die from COVID. So I think if you're above 65, if you have any comorbidities, it's smart to get vaccinated. It's smart to probably follow up with your booster shot too. Now, we've known that, where it starts and ends with how the vaccines help you is the severity of when you get it. It is not through the spread of it. But while that approach definitely lowers the number of deaths and hospitalizations, which is great, the pandemic won't end because there is no metric that the people in power are actually looking to. When we get to X, these things come off. So that's why I've always said pandemics end socially. Pandemic ends when groups of populations are fed up with shit and they stop complying, and that's how they end.
Yeah. So we know that like the whole kids getting vaccinated thing like is hard for me because again, if that doesn't stop the spread, then and they're not going to die from it anyway, then there doesn't seem to be a lot of use for it, right? I mean, that's the argument against it. So I guess my whole thing was like, look. And in this like utopian world, let's just say for whatever reason, we had a vaccine the day that COVID came to America and we all got vaccinated. Like, obviously that's like a very unrealistic scenario, but I'm just saying like, then there wouldn't have been like a lot of people like dying and stuff. And then it would have been literally just kind of like a cold. And then I feel like we would have gotten better. But again, my views have evolved a little bit on it where, I'm like happier and happier I live in South Dakota lately, which is
thank you. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I really am. I don't like always agree with like.
Hear it up for South Dakota for the free states. Thank you.
I'm a weird like political person. I just don't really care about much. You know that. But it really is like we went to Central California 2 weeks ago. We went to DC this last weekend, and man, it is nice to be home sometimes.
Hey, how is that?
It's freezing up here, and the weather sucks, but it's nice to be home sometimes.
How is that? That steak place I told you to go to in DC. Is that any good? Do you go there?
So we kind of copped out and just went to like a chain steak place. We went to Morton's.
Okay, if you know anything about Matt Ford, he does this all the time. There was a time you had a reservation for a nice restaurant in Phoenix, like for some kind of celebration or something, and instead him and Sarah go get gas station pizza. Is that true or not true?
It was frozen pizza, but it is true. That's so much like that's Sarah's style to a T. Like, I don't know. That's my wife for you.
That's tough.
And me, I guess, too, to some extent.
No, but
we were walking Morton's and hungry, and like we just walked in, and they had a spot for us. So
I mean, I've never been to Morton's, so I can't hate. But
yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at.
I'm not a chain guy, admittedly. I would much prefer.
I hear you.
I support local business, and you should too.
I hear you.
As a local business owner yourself. So
right.
But back to the kids, where you talked about vaccines, and you said it was like they don't really get sick from it, so it's kind of not needed. What we're seeing squashed a lot in the news is actually the, while unlikely, still there, potential side effects from a adolescent or teen or kid getting the vaccine. So I have a study on this. So this is a peer-reviewed study in the Journal of Clinical Infectious Diseases. Shows that there is increased risk in myocarditis, inflammation of the heart, something I've talked about this on the show before. It is a chronic condition. There is no cure. In very severe cases, it can lead to early death.
It's from getting the vaccine or from getting COVID?
From getting the vaccine. So this is specifically after the second dose. They're not seeing it as much after one dose. So the incidence rate, they did a study in Chinese men, was 1 out of every 2,680 children. So a small risk, not invisible though. So that's about 0.04% chance. There's a 0.003% chance of dying from COVID. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I just compared death to a livable heart condition. Well, let's put more apples to apples. So the comparison of myocarditis to hospitalization from COVID is about equal. So which would I choose? A potential long-term health implication for my child, or the same chance of a hospitalization? Right. So we're seeing a lot. This is really specific to kids and adolescents. So that's why, in New York City now, if you're between the ages of 5 and 11, you can't go to a restaurant without a vaccine. You can't go to watch Disney on Ice unless your son or daughter has been jabbed twice. That's the world we live in now, in certain places that don't value freedom.
So what is as far as schools go, so this, in New York City, for example, is school back to normal in New York City?
Define normal.
I mean, 2019.
No, absolutely not. No.
Interesting.
There's still distances. There's new rules about when you eat.
Do you know about Phoenix? In Arizona?
Georgia's kids wear masks. I don't know if
they're totally normal here. 100%.
Yeah, no, a lot of places are normal. And, this is, out of many reasons why my kids will never enter the public school system. Matt, you have the ability to shoot me in the arm if I ever talk about putting my kids in the public school system.
With the vaccine.
Yeah, you can triple jab me right in my forehead if I ever put my kids through that. Because I just don't support the government having the ability to immediately and without cause take away learning from my child. We're in now year 3 of at least their school is being somewhat interrupted. Year 3.
Yeah.
At what point is enough for a disease that has killed 475 children? Less than 100 of those were healthy, no comorbidities. What are we doing?
I feel like Alex Sharp has entered your body and is now talking. That sounds like an Alex Sharp.
And to be fair, I distinctly remember I was on my bachelor party, so it was 2019, and I was talking to my friends about how I wanted to homeschool my kids, and they were all talking to me how it was crazy. So I was on this. I was committed to this before COVID. This is now just entrenched me in it. Now I can't move.
I really love the idea of getting friends or people that you trust together and having all of your kids kind of go to school together to a certain extent, and just paying a teacher to come and teach your kids or whatever it is. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And I think, as you and I being entrepreneurs and, me non-clinical, you're right at the finish line. It's going to be a big shock to our lifestyles when we have kids and they have to abide by the school calendar. You can only take vacations in April and February and Christmas. We're going to hate that. And it's going to make us maybe subconsciously resent our kids for that. And,
true. Yeah.
With homeschooling comes, increased flexibility with that. I would argue if done right, they're going to come out smarter. I don't know. That's just my judgment. I just really think with that much more level of attention from the teacher, just one-on-one or 1-on-5, that kind of small environment. And then also where your learning doesn't have to just take place in the classroom. You can spend the day at the museum. You can even look up things on YouTube. You can do whatever you want in service of learning that you would never be able to do it in a school.
At what age would you want your kids? In high school, would you want him?
Yeah, that's the question. Is do you put them in high school? And that's something that I probably end up doing. I probably will end up doing.
That's kind of where I land too.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, there is then you start to think about the social aspect, and you try to get that through activities that they can be socialized with other kids their age. But it's tough to replace. And you might even have them come to you and be like, I want to go to school with my friends. That's also another challenge you kind of have to think about that might happen.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
All right.
I want to hear about this book.
This book, yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I'll try
What's
to
it
go.
Called again?
I'll try to go this pretty quickly. So it's called "The Plague Upon Our House."
Okay.
Dr. Scott Atlas, he was on the task force in 2020. and he's coming out now to talk about the ridiculous conditions he saw in there. So I read most of it. So I'll kind of go through what I thought was most interesting. So he really attacked this idea. There's a fake story going around that we had a COVID-denying president in Trump who did nothing, put people at danger, killed, you saw in the news, Trump kills $300,000 people who died in 2020. That was Trump's fault. Versus the hero scientists in the White House, the Dr. Fauci's, the Deborah Birx, who convinced Trump to put COVID policies, to do lockdowns, and to stick with them. So that's kind of how it's framed, right? Trump, it's a Trump derangement symptom. Everything's Trump's fault. What was interesting is in this book, he talks about how Trump's natural inclination was to not do the lockdowns. Like he never felt comfortable with it. He didn't want to do it. He was talked into it by these advisors, by Birx and by Fauci specifically. And it's just interesting. And Dr. Atlas calls this Trump's biggest failure as a president, that he did not stick to his intuition and follow through with pushing back against the lockdowns. He was, think about it, put yourself in Trump's shoes. He was just they tried to impeach him a couple times. He was getting killed in the media. It's towards the end of his term. He's thinking about, he's going to run again. Like he's kind of beaten down, and they won over him. And he should have stuck to his guns. That's kind of my first takeaway. Here's the real effects Dr. Atlas goes through of the lockdowns. Okay, missed cancer screenings, missed surgeries, 3 years of learning losses, bankrupted small businesses, depression and drug overdoses, citizen demoralization, violation of religious freedoms, all while they neglected the people who are actually at risk, which he was in the task force trying to tell people through studies that the people at risk were the people in long-term nursing care facilities, which is who the bulk of the people died from COVID. And none of these people on the task force listened to him. They would have rather done unilateral methods to fight COVID than targeted at the at-risk people, which makes zero sense. If you're not going to talk, I'm just going to keep going.
I'm riveted.
Okay, you're riveted. Good. If you're riveted, that means everyone else is riveted. So
that's true, actually. That is true.
That's probably not true. As they hit, 15 seconds ahead. So actually, Dr. Atlas was the only one on the task force. Now, this is a task force made up of our leading scientific minds and epidemiologists in this country. Keep that in mind. He was the only one who showed up with studies. What Fauci and Birx showed up with were charts of infections that were downloadable from Google. Like, none of them showed up with scientific literature, and that baffled him, and it is baffling. Dr. Fauci is famous for saying attacks on me are attacks on science. He has literally compared himself to science, and he brought zero scientific studies to a COVID task force. That's quite interesting. So he received no backing during these meetings. I mean, he was very much on an island, and that's why he was able to be steamrolled. I talked about Trump not being in favor of lockdowns. This is interesting. He calls the media the most despicable group of unprincipled liars one could ever imagine. Is that not poetic?
Wow. By the way, I'm always confused about this. What is like the media? What is mainstream media? What is not mainstream media?
I mean, you're mainly talking the ABCs, the NBCs, the CNNs, the CNBCs, the Fox News. Those are all kind of mainstream media outlets.
Okay.
Yeah. He went into the problems with testing, which is something I talked about in my original COVID episode, about how sensitive the PCR tests are and how dead virus fragments can last for weeks and months. So people are testing positive at a higher rate than they are actually symptomatic, which is 2 weeks or less. That topic was never addressed at the task force meetings. He said he tried to bring it to him. No one had it back. There's no discourse about it. And this is one of the things that's prolonged the pandemic so long has been mass indiscriminate testing. Like, we are not testing based on symptomatic people, which is what Fauci said he wanted to do before in February in his emails. Symptomatic, then you get tested. Their whole strategy shifted 180 to test everyone, and that allowed for.
Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, because if you remember in the beginning, we were tracking deaths and hospitalizations. At some point, when those went down, we started tracking cases. We've tracked cases ever since, probably about July of 2020, and that has never stopped. And that is one reason people think there's still, a pandemic going on, which. It's up for debate.
Right.
This was interesting. So Atlas brought in leading epidemiologists from outside the task force to meet with Trump. Martin Kulldorff, which is one of my favorite epidemiologists on this matter. He's formerly of Harvard, was with the CDC. He was fired. Wonder why. Jay Batok.
I love that you have favorite epidemiologists. I love that about you.
another one was Joseph Ladapo, who, if you remember me talking about him before, is the Surgeon General of Florida, a guy I like very much.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's your boy.
They had a meeting with Trump, and it was never reported by the press. Never talked about. They also brought in Sunetra Gupta of Oxford, another good COVID mind, to meet with the HHS secretary. Again, not reported by the news. They were going out of their way to squash the opinions of the epidemiologists who were going out against lockdowns. They were never supported. They were put in front of the media. They were just kind of pushed aside, as in you're not supporting the agenda we're going for. Just thought that was interesting. Another thing, when Trump tested positive from COVID, no one from the White House was allowed to talk to the news. So for 4 days, remember that whole news cycle of like people thinking Trump was like about to die because we haven't heard from him in 4 days? No one was allowed to talk to the press.
And whose mandate was that?
That's the thing. I don't know. And he doesn't even make it clear in the book. There's some kind of governing I can't say the word. You know what I meant. Bureaucracy that is leading the agenda, and it's tough to decipher who exactly that is. But he said the proudest moment he had of Trump was when he came back after recovering from COVID, and remember that weird like press conference thing where he's like, COVID should not be feared. That was actually Dr. Alice's favorite moment from the Trump presidency. That's kind of funny. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with a quote, and then I'll be done. So this was my favorite quote from the book. So he says, "I have been shocked at the enormous power of government officials to unilaterally decree a sudden and severe shutdown of society, to simply close businesses and schools by edict, restrict personal movements, mandate behavior, regulate interactions with our family members, and eliminate our most basic freedoms without any defined end and with little accountability." If you want to sum up the COVID crisis, the response to COVID, that couple sentences right there is how it is.
So what does this mean, not to shift the focus, but a little bit, like what does this mean for elections coming up?
You really want to ask me?
We could have a whole nother podcast about that probably, but just like in short form, in Matt Guarino short form, what does this mean? Not only for like the senatorial races, but the president, like honestly, like how does this play out?
I mean, this plays out like a giant red wave. We saw it happen in Jersey and Virginia. I mean, these were off-cycle government elections. In Virginia, voted for Biden by 10 points, was won by a Republican by 4 points. In New Jersey, Biden won by 16 points. The Republican was within 1 point of winning. So, and overwhelmingly, they do those exit pollings in those, and the things that people cared about were mainly education and the economy. So restrictions against children in schools and the performance of the economy due to the COVID response are two things that the Democrats are actually getting hammered for. And they tried to run against the anti-Trump thing, and that didn't work out. They tried to make the Governor Youngkin in Virginia equate him with Trump. Vote for him as vote for Trump. Well, it didn't work. And if that strategy doesn't work, what do they really have to go on in November, midterms? Because they're not going to have the economy's in the tank. Inflation's going way up. People are pissed off. Like they don't quite get what people care about. People care about our children and the economy. That's like how much this stuff costs, how much am I making, is the economy in a healthy place? Like that's what people care about. And when you have stuff that performs that is not going well in those areas, they're going to vote against you.
If you had to bet right now on whatever December 7th, 2021, who is going to be running for president, both Democratic and Republican?
Well, they probably won't announce it until 2022, but I think what I've seen floated is Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg as the Democratic one, if Biden doesn't run, which he probably won't. He's kind of playing this act like he's fit and healthy and he can do it, but I honestly think that's a farce. I think they just don't want to, he's a little early on his presidency to say, I'm not running again. I think, and I'm not just thinking, I'm praying that that's who they put on the ticket. Because Kamala Harris polls extremely poorly.
Yeah, she does. I was just reading something about that, actually. How she beats, like, none of the top 7 or whatever.
No.
When Biden beats Trump, and that's it, I think, like, as far as polling goes.
I believe it. I mean, well, it showed out last year.
Right.
But, yeah, if they put that there, it's going to be a smashing win. Now, the whole question for the red side is, is Trump going to run again? At some point, we will know. I think it's been pretty clear that DeSantis won't run if Trump does, which is really unfortunate. If DeSantis runs in 2022, 2024, he sweeps. Like he's going to win by a lot. But it's just a matter of does he run? And if he doesn't run 2024, he will run in 2028. So we're gonna have a President DeSantis. Might just have to wait a little longer than I personally want to. But yeah,
you can get a DeSantis jersey.
No, I will. I mean, I think,
Swap out your Rogers for this one.
it's going to be 2022 is going to be a tough elections for Democrats. It really is. And, we'll see. So where are we at?
Interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. All right. Do we want to jump into let's do longevity, since we probably don't have enough time for the business breakdown and the questions.
Yeah.
So talk to me. What got you into longevity, and what kind of do you implement anything right now? Talk through it.
Yeah, honestly, I had my dad passed away when he was 62 a couple of years ago. I just had pretty bad genes. I'd take a hard look in the mirror. Like my dad had 4 different types of cancer. My mom has had cancer now 3 times. Parkinson's, debilitating stuff on my family, and a lot of these things. I just started thinking about it. Like, I'm 33. Just got married when I'm 33. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we'll have a kid in the next couple of years. But I mean, I'm gonna be, by the time I'm 60, about the time my dad started getting sick. Like, my kid's only gonna be 25. Yeah, 24, 25. And I feel like I really want to take steps now to be able to then enjoy, because longevity is 2 things. It's like you have a long life, but then you have a long active life, right? It's like you want to make sure your longevity of you being able to be active goes as long as you can, because just living a long time isn't necessarily that cool, right? Right. It's more about can you carry on an active lifestyle later into life? Like, we both like golf. I love tennis. Like, those, I want to hike. Like, those are sports I want to do going. I want to be in the 70 and older tennis tournaments, and pickleball and all that crap. So I started really getting into it probably a year and a half ago, and I've only recently started, actually during COVID is when I really started researching it. Found some podcasts and stuff, people I like to follow. I don't know. Are you familiar with Peter Attia? Have we talked about that? The Drive podcast?
I think you've told me about him.
So he's the guy that I kind of use as my, he's my guy. I just, pretty much everything he says, I either agree with or I really, really like. He's got a podcast. His whole medical practice is based strictly on longevity, the science of longevity and active lifestyle later in life. He's pretty much now only the longevity doctor to the stars, so you can actually see him. But he gives away a lot of nuggets in his podcast that, he pretty much tells you everything that he tells his patients. It's just matter you don't actually get to get blood work by him. So the big thing that now I'm focused on, I feel like part of this is genes, right? But other part of it are what can I control now in my life that will set me up better later on? So a big focus within the last, I don't know, 2 months, I think. It's been pretty recently, but I mean, I've been kind of conscious of it for a while, but then I would go really good for a while, then fall off the cliff and have dominoes for a week straight. So the big thing is diet and I this isn't breaking news to anybody, but diet and exercise is really important. One of the things that I found from a diet perspective that has really worked for me personally is I kind of feel and I think Peter Attia kind of holds this thought that inflammation is kind of the culprit behind a lot of bad things just in life in general. And it's a big predictor of the big diseases, of the neurodegenerative diseases, the cardiovascular diseases, cancer, right? So those are the things that I'm trying to kind of combat with exercise and diet. There's a lot of you can just Google anti-inflammatory diet, and it's pretty much eat a lot of nuts. Berries are good, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries are good. Fatty fish, stuff in high in omega-3s and stuff. And try to stay away from refined stuff, white bread, white rice, obviously just straight up sugar and high fructose corn syrup. So we've been trying to make a little bit more of an effort to just kind of cut off the sugar. I'm the guy that was I'm the guy that was still 33
eating the donuts,
a bowl of sugar cereal every morning, a bowl of Trix every morning,
Well, if you're talking cereal, there's a great keto cereal that is high in protein, low in carbs, and completely without all the shit.
I've seen it.
It is so freaking good. I
get ads all the time for.
It's so good.
That I'm saying right on the phone. What's it called?
Oh man, it's in Sprouts. We get it every week, but I don't remember the name of it, unfortunately. But
just trying to stay off the juice. If I get on cereal again, dude, I'm an addict. I'll just hit it hard.
I have a question on your family history stuff. So have you looked into or know about any early detection mechanisms, in the ones that you're genetically predisposed to? Have you looked into any of that stuff?
Yeah. So when all this happened with my dad, I signed up for all of those 23andMe and like Everlywell and all of these like things where I submit blood and stuff and saliva to get these like genetic markers sent back to me so I can kind of see. There's some specific markers for like cancer specifically. I don't know off the top of my head. There's specific genes that people carry. For example, like there's a specific gene that some people carry that if you have it, you are like 25 times more likely to end up with a neurodegenerative disease, whether that's Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or something like that. I think it's like ApoE or something like that.
Those are some of the worst diseases you could have.
Exactly.
Just
right.
Like kill your mind.
Exactly. And so that's that's the extent I've gone so far. What I feel like the way that things are going for me, and like this kind of similar to kind of the same thought of like homeschooling kids, is like this whole concierge doctor concept.
Yeah.
Right. Where and there's some in Phoenix, there's some even around here.
Yeah, they have them a lot of places now.
Yeah, where you can go there and kind of give them like, hey, here's the things that are important to me. I want to test for these specific things, and then they can kind of like, you have a lot more say in what happens, with your healthcare, and you can. I mean, like Alex Sharp has talked about his concierge doctor that, he's a big he can go to them and speak freely with them and not feel like he's being talked down to or whatever. And I just feel like that's a concept that is going to get more and more popular as we go and people take more and more control over their health. But as far as like actual testing, I mean, I'm not old enough to get like a colonoscopy yet.
Look into so they do these like full body scans that you can get like once. Look into those. That's something I really want to bring in for myself for next year is having that regimen started. It's a couple $1,000. You get a full body scan. I don't know the full laundry list of what they're able to see on those, but I just like the idea that they're looking for something, while you're, while we're so youngish.
Yeah.
I mean, because like
we can go ahead.
I mean, better than I would. Like stuff like cancer a lot of times with early detection, it can be no big deal, but without early detection, it can be deadly, obviously.
Yeah, personal story. My mom's original cancer was like by far the most aggressive out of all 7 cancers that my parents got. My mom's original cancer that her hairstylist found on the back of her head was by far the most dangerous cancer that any of them had. The problem was that with all my dad's stuff, it didn't show up until it was too late,
Right.
And then it was just this constant battle of getting better and then getting worse and stuff. So that really that changed my life in a really big way from like a professional standpoint, as and personal standpoint, but especially now, like I'm really getting back into so the other part of that is working out, right?
Yep.
And there's a lot of like conflicting reports. Interesting podcast I just listened to with Peter Attia not that long ago that he was saying that one of the biggest predictors for longevity with people is muscle mass and grip strength. Those 2 things.
Interesting.
Which is interesting because I think mostly because those are easy to test. Like grip strength, you can literally just have.
You wouldn't think of that though.
You wouldn't, and a lot of it has to do with as you get old. I mean, if you have if you have a lot of muscle mass and grip strength, that means that you've like worked out your entire life, likely, and you're generally healthier. But even like practical things such as like preventing you from falls when you get older, and like being able to like, I don't know, get yourself out of situations that maybe you wouldn't like. You couldn't pull yourself up from whatever situation you were in. If you're in,
what are we gonna we're dying on a bridge here? What's happening?
No. Like you fall in the bathroom, like the life alert. I fall, can't get up. Type thing.
I mean, I was an EMT. I know all about picking up old women and men who have fallen down and can't get up. That's pretty much all we did.
What were you?
I was a volunteer EMT in college, and one of our like every day call would be I fell down, I can't get up, and we actually didn't have to pick them up. The firefighters came in, like big burly men picked them up, but we were
Did
there.
you work for Life Alert?
No, it was a volunteer little thing.
Oh, those are hilarious commercials. So the other thing too with longevity is this interesting thing about like, I think like these high intensity interval trainings and like these Tabata workouts have come on recently that have been a little bit more popular. And I think they found that it's a similar concept to the whole like, strengthening your body in the right way is actually really good for longevity. So that's why like going from the cold tub to the sauna is like has been proven be very good for your body. Having these workouts that are like very short in interval but very stressful to your body are very good for longevity. Having just like a lot of built up cortisol because you're worrying about your workday all the time is very bad for longevity, right? Like there's different kinds of stress that your body can handle. Again, you shouldn't. I mean, I'm not like an expert on this, but I just think it's super interesting.
Do you want to hear the Matt Guarino prescription to longevity? Because I have it. I have it ready if you're interested. I have the sequence. Okay. A couple of these we've already talked about. Diet, I think we've touched on that. Obviously, one of the biggest parts. We've talked a bit about exercise. Obviously, that's on there. I think when it comes to exercise, know what your goals are. If you're talking longevity, there definitely needs to be a cardio component to it, whether that is through like a hit style workouts or running, or any kind of cardio needs to be in there. You have to be stressing your heart a bit. You can't just be a Tyler Tobert and be a giant, bodybuilder, because that's not going to support longevity, unfortunately.
If muscle mass matters, he's going to be 1,000 years old.
Yeah, well, he ain't, because I've seen that HRV and it. Vitamins. I think vitamins are often overlooked by people. People, like, there's this weird viewpoint that like you're just pissing out money, right? Like you take all these vitamins, you just piss them out. Well, yeah, piss comes from blood, which is where the vitamins are. So yes, you are literally pissing them out, but they're coming from your blood. So prescription for me, a multivitamin, men's or women, for that. A vitamin B complex, vitamin D, very important, especially in the age of COVID. Fish oil, omega-3s, and something called NAC, which is a something for your heart. It's anti-inflammatory for your heart. Those would be my prescription for your and there's a bunch of others obviously you can add on, but those are like kind of my must-haves. So I'm very much a vitamin believer. No seed oils. So no vegetable oils. They're bad for testosterone. They're bad for longevity. I would avoid anything processed vegetable oil, canola oil, any of that kind of oils. Stick with the olive oil, the avocado oils. Like, stick with clean oils. And you'd be surprised. Like, they're in everything. So like the fries you're getting from a restaurant, that's all vegetable oil. Like, that, you don't want that shit. Sleep 8 hours a day. Like, must. I don't care if I function fine on 5 hours. Fuck you. No, you don't. Like, if you sleep 8 hours, you're gonna live longer. I'm sorry, but like, that's been proven enough times. Healthy body weight. So what, like, for your height, what is a healthy body weight? You need to be in whatever range that is, and that's super important. Last one. If you're a woman, 2 liters. If you're a man, 3 liters of water a day. So this giant jug when you're watching YouTube, this is 3 liters of water. I don't go to sleep until this is gone. That's my pact to myself, and I track it on my productivity app. That's a big one. So that's my MG prescription for living longer.
The last thing I want to touch on with longevity is this whole thing. Are you familiar with the drug rapamycin?
Yes.
Ever heard of it?
Ish. I've heard of it.
So it's a big Peter Attia thing. He started a long time ago. So it's an what is it? I think it's like an anti-rejection drug for transplants.
Yeah, that sounds right. I feel like we learned about it in this dental school. It might be where I remember it.
Yeah. So there's 3 institutes in the United States that independently test. So there's one. It's like in Colorado Springs, Austin, and like somewhere on the East Coast, where it's funded by some private thing. It's their longevity institutes where they test on lab mice the same thing, but in 3 different physical locations, so they can kind of come up with a conclusion that says, like, hey, if it worked in one laboratory but was a disaster in the other 2 laboratories, like, it probably, they're testing the exact same thing, same controls, everything. They just wanted to make sure that like there's no human element to it. And they've tested a million things, and companies will go to them and say, hey, like, we think we've got something here. Will you test this? And like, time after time after time, there's like very non-significant findings. The only thing that has ever increased lifespan substantially in these lab mice is rapamycin.
What about metformin? Have you looked
Metformin is another one.
Yeah, that's a big
but that one hasn't. The literature on that, as far as like in human studies, is much less has been much less fleshed out, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't really understand the mechanism why metformin is such a good like long-term drug. I know there's like very little side effects to it, and it's a relatively benign drug. But I just know for sure the rapamycin is pretty much the one that is like, it's been the gold standard of longevity. Like, if it can compare to rapamycin, then it's like, maybe it's good for humans to take.
Do you listen to Dr. Sinclair much? He's my longevity go-to guy.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
I'll look him up. Is it David? Who is it?
It's Dr. Sinclair. I forget his first name. They asked him if
I think he's been on the podcast.
Yeah, he's very big in longevity. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen him. They asked him if he suspects that there is a person living today who will reach 1,000. He said no. But like, that is kind of where we're trending. What generation will get there? Who knows? But
you know what's interesting about that? I swear that I read something, and this could be wrong, and I could have dreamt this, but like, I swear I read something where like the oldest person in the world died in like, the oldest person was like 121 and they died in like 1999, and then the second oldest was 119 and they died in like 2007, and there hasn't been anyone since 2007 that's gotten to be that old.
That's weird. I mean, I think in our lifetimes we'll see people in the 120s. I think especially because when you have people like Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, like ultra wealthy people sinking, and which they're doing now, sinking tons of money in longevity, for themselves, but will also benefit society. You got to think a domino is going to fall that pushes us in that direction. For everything I read is like we're probably 20 to 30 years away from something that's really going to make the difference. More than just kind of like extending us a bit.
Yeah.
So I would imagine in our lifetime there'll be something.
I misspoke. Well, I didn't misspeak, actually. The oldest person ever died in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
The second oldest died in 1999. She was 119. Wow. But there is a Japanese lady, our great new hope, Kane Tanaka. She's 118 years and 339 days. She's close on 119 pretty quick.
Our great hope right there.
So only 3 of the top 10 oldest people ever are still alive right now. 2 of the top 10.
That's kind of wild to think about.
I wonder if we've potentially, or like how that works if we've reached kind of like as far as we think people can actually live, but then now we just need to expand like health span instead of lifespan. Like extend how long they can be really healthy versus.
Yeah, I mean, because
maybe like 20. I don't know.
I think that's all you and I really care about is how long we can be healthy. Exactly. As far as like when I'm immobile, you can just go ahead and kick me out the proverbial door and I'll see my way out. But if I'm healthy, I want to be still there. So
the pictures of these people are just wild on Wikipedia. I think they're all women too. Fun fact.
Yeah, I mean, women live longer than men on average, so that would make sense.
It really does.
So we had a bunch of questions.
That's all I got on longevity.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, questions.
I know. We're running out of time, so I don't know. Let's see. Let's do a quick one.
You might have to have me back. Wow.
I might have to have you back. Okay, quick one.
Maybe.
So this is John, the Wisconsin guy from the Quick Trip comments. Also known for shit talking George's sons. Proud of your newfound support for my quarterback. You're welcome, John.
There you go.
Packer fan.
Our quarterback.
That's right. So John will become an AVPO. So he's asking what restaurant is a must visit while he's here.
Ooh, that's a spicy one because you probably have some different.
Yeah, let me think.
So for everyone that doesn't know, I lived in Phoenix for 4 years. I went to dental school there, and then haven't lived there for 4 years. Been back decent times. Matt has recently moved there. Mm-hmm. I hate to without him being on the show, but like it kind of depends on what kind of food you're looking for, really.
You got to give him something.
I think if you're looking for something really, really good, I think the best restaurant in Phoenix, Scottsdale is Cafe Monarch. I think that is the number one. It's in Old Town Scottsdale. It's expensive. If you're coming with your wife, it's like the quintessential perfect date night restaurant. It's probably going to be $250 if you get some drinks and a dessert. But it is like really good experience. Like the ambiance is nice. Like I think that is probably the best dining experience in Scottsdale.
Good. I'll write that one down. I'm going tonight for our, it's like it's our anniversary of dating. We're going to that Point hotel, near where you live, your house is. Have you eaten there before?
Yeah. No, I've never been able to get a reservation. I've driven up there. It's such a cool view.
Yeah, you need a reservation. It's not like hard to do, but you just have to plan it 2 weeks in advance.
Right. Yeah.
But if people don't know, it's like on the top of this little mountainish thing with a beautiful view. You can see the downtown Phoenix skyline. It's like 8 minutes from my house. It's probably 3 minutes from where Matt Ford has a house, which he doesn't live in. Speaking of which, so February is fast approaching, my friend. And, I believe the terms of your deal were by the end of February, you move here or you are no longer allowed on the show. So I just want to reiterate that.
I do want to be involved in the show. I'll just say that.
That's not very committal, leading me to believe he doesn't think he's moving here in February, meaning he will not be invited after February. So very sad for listeners because I know you probably enjoyed having him on like I did. Unfortunately, we have a 3-month window here or a 2-month window, and then he's out the door. So that's an unfortunate.
Yeah. You got any other questions?
I have more questions, but we're at an hour. We got a meeting that we got to head to. So
that was solid.
So I'm gonna cut it there. So thank you for the question.
Was there too much sports talk? Listeners need to tell us. Was there too much sports talk there?
There was a football game last night where they threw 3 times. Like that is unprecedented. I mean, you have to talk about that. That's like.
And anytime Tiger Woods is in the news, you have to talk about it.
Yeah, and
that's just the rules.
But let's be clear, he was in the news because he swung out some clubs at a range and they, videoed him. That's it. That's not really
that's big time news.
It's not really that big time of news. But But thank you, Matt, for coming on. This is fun.
Anytime.
So appreciate it. So we'll sign off here. Thank you for listening to the $1 Billion Podcast. We'll be back next week with Matt and George. But for today, thank you to Dr. Matt Ford. We'll see everyone next week on the $1 Billion Podcast.
Okay.